Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to look at the very first ever Inteleon card, which is coming out in the Pokemon trading card game. It's in that there V-Deck, and we have a translation brought to us by the lovely 2new1223. Lovely person, very helpful, awesome with translations. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now, Inteleon was obviously, is the evolution of Sobble, who was, as I think I made rather clear was going to be the case, my first partner Pokemon in my journey through Pokemon Sword. As a side note, I know that we are showing off Pokemon that were not revealed prior to the games. We're almost 2 weeks beyond the release of the games at this stage. The images have been out there since release day, and the cards are now starting to leak. So I apologise to anyone that may not have seen the Pokemon. I hope you all have at this stage. But unfortunately, now that the cards are coming out, we've been very spoiler-free on this channel before now. But I'm afraid with cards actually being revealed and shown off and actually being released into the wild, we do now have to start covering those cards, even though some of them are covering Pokemon that were not revealed publicly before the release of the games. But we did about 2 weeks of spoiler-free, so I think we did far better than most. So Inteleon then, what does it actually do? And it's really awkward for me to say Inteleon because he was sad boy all the way through my playthrough. So we have a Stage 2 Pokemon with 160 HP, which is high, but then again, Dragonite back in the Sun and Moon base had 160 HP, and that was like 3 years ago at this stage. So I suppose Snap would be the way to put it. Retreat cost of 1 is nice and low. We've got U-turn board and we've got escape board, so that's really nice. It means we can retreat rather easily. Weakness to lightning is kind of annoying because stuff like Pikachu and Zekrom do 150, which means you would survive, except the weakness means you don't. And being a water Pokemon is lovely because Welder is everywhere, which means Fire decks are everywhere, which means water's a pretty good typing to have right now. The sad thing is we've lost a lot of our best tricks like Aqua Patch and Brooklet Hill. We lost them to the rotation, but we can still use stuff like Crash Awake, which will allow us to search for any 2 cards if we discard some water energy. We've still got Quagsire, which will move all of our water energy to the active, and we can always combine that with something like Naganadel, or we can use Blastoise and Piplup, which as soon as we get free energy on them will then allow us to attach extra energy, get some healing and all of that good stuff going on. And we get a nice natural partner in Keldeo GX, which is proving to be one of the best Pokemon around at the moment, so there's a lot of good stuff about being a water Pokemon. But what does it do? Well, the first attack I absolutely adore. For 1 colourless energy, according to Tunu, you get to do 40 damage and discard a random card from your opponent's hand. Now, 40 damage is fine. It's not particularly good, it's fine. It is perfectly enough to KO Ditto Prism Star, which is kind of everywhere. And there's going to be some smaller, weaker fire Pokemon around. But then again, even Victini Prism Star's rocking 90 HP, which means you will be just 10 damage short, even with a weakness. But it's really the hand disruption I like here. You've got a Pokemon with 160 HP, which gives you quite a bit of survivability. And then you get to discard a card from your opponent's hand, except, let's face it, right? If you're playing this and you're relying on the first attack, if this is your goal, you're clearly not going to just be using this. You're going to be playing some other kind of hand disruption. And it's when you pair this with other hand disruption that it starts getting really exciting. So something simple like Mars. Draw 2 cards. If you do, discard a random card from your opponent's hand. So now all of a sudden you're discarding 2 cards from their hand rather than 1. But of course, we can do better. Now, it's banned and expanded, but at the moment, in Standard, we still have Jesse and James, the one that came out in Hidden Fates. And Jesse and James, each player discards 2 cards from their hand, your opponent discards first. So now of Inteleon, we've got 3 cards being discarded, rather than 2. Or 1 even. And you can always combine this with the Wheezing from Hidden Fates, for instance, which If discarded using Jesse and James, your opponent discards an extra card from their hand. So now Jesse and James with Wheezing could be 4, Inteleon is 5, and then we bring in stuff like Reset Stamp. Reset Stamp makes your opponent shuffle their hand into their deck and draw a number of cards equal to their remaining prizes. Oh, look. That is, yeah, that's pretty good. Now you put your opponent down to a low hand size before you start pulling all of this out. I mean, you could use Lieutenant Surge's strategy to play 2 Mars or 2 Jesse and James, but I'm trying to keep to things which are going to be more easily used. As a side note, Lieutenant Surge also banned and expanded, so all these hand disruption things I'm talking about with Inteleon here are rooted firmly in the standard format. We are unfortunately not going to be able to take it over to expanded for, well, for the reasons that the cards we need are banned. And of course, once you've got your opponent down to a 0-card hand, in comes Chip Chip Ice Axe, again banned and expanded but not in standard. Then let's look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, and then you put 1 on top of their deck and shuffle the other 2 back in. If you don't want to use Reset Stamp, you can always use Judge, which puts your opponent down to a 4-card hand. Puts you down to a 4-card hand as well, though. And then you need to find your Chip Chip Ice Axe or whatever else you're using after having played Judge. And obviously, if you use Judge, if you then want to use Mars or Jesse and James, you've then got to bring in Lieutenant Surge's strategy. So Reset Stamp, generally a slightly better idea. Although Reset Stamp is not so good in the early game, because of the whole, it works when your opponent's taken a few prizes kind of thing. And this isn't the only one we've ever seen that's got a bit of hand disruption, right? We've seen that Honchkro's got the amazing GX attack, whereby you actually get to choose 2 cards from your opponent's hand and get rid of them. That's pretty good, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, that's really good. Plus, it's got the awesome ability whereby your opponent cannot play tools, special energy, or stadium cards from their hand if it is your active Pokemon, which is pretty gosh darn good. We've seen some hand disruption things coming around lately. This is just another really good option for it. What separates this, though, is that we've got a really quite nice attack as well. 1 water, 1 colorless energy, 100 damage. But then you get to choose an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon and put it back into their hand. Oh. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. Now look, this isn't some phenomenal energy discard. This isn't getting rid of all the energy on your opponent's Pokemon. But we've still got Crushing Hammer, and more on this later, but Crushing Hammer is getting a reprint in these V-decks, so Crushing Hammer is sticking around for a little while yet. So we can play some energy denial here as well. And 100 damage for 2 energy is pretty good. Now, bearing in mind we've got Quagsire, so the energy shouldn't be a huge issue here. And all of a sudden, we've got either hand disruption or we've got energy denial. And what you can do here, I mean, this reminds me kind of like Jumpluff. I know, bear with me here, right? Jumpluff was a very, very good Pokemon. It kind of ruled the format for a little while, or near about. It was just super fast and super hard hitting. And what you would basically do is use Mass Attack to do 10 damage for each Pokemon in play. And that was your big attack. That was the one you used. But if you could take a KO with Leaf Guard, you always would, because although Leaf Guard only did 30 damage, any damage done to you during your opponent's next turn was reduced by 30. So you would use Mass Attack when you had to and Leaf Guard when you could. Well, you can do a similar thing here. You can sit there using your bigger attack, but then if you get to a stage where you can afford to use the smaller attack, then you do. And then you get to discard a random card from your opponent's hand. The only thing that puts me off here, like the only thing that I do not like about this, is the fact that it's a stage 2. And the fact that it's a stage 2 does put me off, although we have got those Pokemon search cards coming, which are going to really help. I love that you can get rid of cards from your opponent's hand. I love that you can get rid of their energy. And we're doing a decent amount of damage here. Now, if you come against something like a Blacephalon GX, you're doing really well. That's going down. Life is good. But we can also look at something like Reshiram and Charizard, and you're a little bit short, but then you're 2-hit KOing for 3 prizes, they're 1-hit KOing for 1 prize. But then again, they are a basic and you are a stage 2. The stage 2 puts me off, make no bones about it. and you're not doing quite as much damage as I might like you to. But we've got low energy disruptive attacks that let you take two different strategies. I really like this. This is probably one of those ones that's going to come back to bite me because it ends up seeing no play because it's a stage 2. But I'm giving it 4 Wassies. And I'm biased because it was my boy all the way through my playthrough of Pokemon Sword. And it was my number 1 Pokemon going through. It was, if I wasn't hitting for weakness, if I wasn't getting a type advantage, it was the one that was my boy. But I do think there's a lot of potential here. It might never see play because of the fact that it's a stage 2, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I think there's a lot of potential here, and I'm excited to start having a bit of a play with it. But I'd like to know what you think, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, which is where we find time and energy to talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.